Life and works of John Donne. John Donne took birth in 1572 and he was expired in 1631. John Donne was both a poet and a divine spirit. He was brought up as a Roman Catholic but joined the Church of England and rose to be Dean of St. Paul Cathedral. His poems range from deeply religious spaces to coarse secular ones. They include lyrics, sonnets, elegies, satires, and epigrams. He is recognized as the greatest of the so called metaphysical poets, whose works were full of unconventional and far fetched images and conceits drawn from the most unlikely sources. His own poems source these in abundance but also exhibit a dramatic power and an individuality that have made him very popular with present day poets. John Donne wrote various types of poems: lyrical, elegiac, satirical, and religious. His poetry is marked by sparkling wit, beautiful fancies, and metaphors, and a deep personal tone. He brought variety into love poetry. Thanks to his contradictory views of life, he was fond of subtlety and reflective imagination in poetry and created curiosity, vagueness, obscurity, and wit. These are the salient features of John Donne's poetry. His verse on others is crudities, infinite work which doth as far extend that none can study it to an end. Is applicable to a lot of his own poetry as well. It was the main characteristics of Donne's poetry. Remember, wit was the main feature of John Donne's poetry. Besides of his wit, Johnson considered him the first poet in the world in something. That means the metaphysical poet. His wit was opposed to the Elizabethan traditions. There's mental gymnastics and jugglery of thoughts in his poetry. Perhaps somewhere he was an eccentric. Despite the intellectual, philosophical, and logical qualities in his poetry, he maintains the language of ordinary speech, which everyone can understand, and the images he draws are from the simple, commonplace situations in life. He has been rehabilitated in the present century by T.S. Eliot. Today, John Donne is regarded as an outstanding poet. Today, John Donne is regarded as an outstanding poet, and that is the reason that you are learning. So, my dear students, first and foremost thing is that you must remember that what you are learning, of which age poetry you are learning, what is the socio cultural, moral, ethical values of that age. So, all these things are supposed to be born by you in your mind. So, now we find that we are learning John Donne, and John Donne is a metaphysical poet. So, what is the meaning of this metaphysical? The word meta means beyond, beyond, and physical means physical nature. That means the world which is beyond the physical nature is known as a metaphysical poetry. So now we find, if the question comes, give an account of John Donne as a metaphysical poet. Why do we call him a metaphysical poet? And this question may come in your history of English literature also. So this is all interlinked. Metaphysical poetry was a kind of revolt against the excessive sentimentalism and romanticism of the 16th century poetry. It disapproved of the Saggard melody and romantic extravagance. As C.S. Lewis had said, metaphysicism in poetry is the fruit of the Renaissance tree becoming overripe and approaching putrescence. Now, intellectual, spiritual, and amorous experiences are there in John Donne's poetry. We find that metaphysical in style and technique in John Donne's poetry. Unifications of sensibility is there in John Donne's poetry. concentration, conceit, and wit, argumentative poetry, abrupt beginning and dramatic tone, bombastic hyperboles, diction and versification, modern fascinations of metaphysical poetry. Even we find you have already learned the poem The Good Morrow. And in this poem Good Morrow, I taught you that that line itself start with good morrow to our waking soul. That means the man so long blinded had suddenly opened his eyes and seen. So we find that this is the fruit come out of the Renaissance. My face in thine eyes and thine in mine appears. Where can we find two better hemispheres? We find that John Donne's poetry is full of love. It's rooted in personal, wide and varied experiences. Now let us see, when was this poem published? When was this poem, first of all, when was this poem published? So this poem was published in 1633. जॉन डन्स पोएम कब पब्लिश हुई थी? 1333. Now, what is the major theme of this poem? The sun rising, authority of love, nature, and God's creation are the major themes of this poem. Throughout the poem, the speaker develops this idea that his love is grand, that even the universe itself exists within their pure relationship. So, who wrote this poem? The 2 marks question may come. Who wrote the poem The Sun Rising, and when was the poem published? So, the poem The Sun Rising was written by John Donne, and it is a 30-line poem with 3 stanzas published in 1633. So, when was it published? It was published in 1633. Very good. So now, as a metaphysical poet, when Dryden, Johnson and Dowden called Donne as a metaphysical poet. So why they called the poet the metaphysical poet? Because the culture at the time was not ready to accept the thoughts of John Donne. And when they were not ready to accept the thoughts of the John Donne, because John Donne's thoughts he was talking about the love which was not permitted by the Christianity at the time. So they called his poetry and his poems metaphysical. Means this poem he is not talking about this world, he is talking about some other world beyond this physical world. So when Dryden, Johnson and Dowden called Donne a metaphysical poet, they refer to the style of Donne. His poetry is metaphysical because of his individualism and his quest for learning. His poetry is full of wit. Wit means ऐसा ज्ञान जो नॉलेज इमेजिनेशन से भी कहीं और हर तरह से लॉजिक और तर्क के आधार पर सही खरा उतरा हो, उसको विट कहते हैं. So it is obscure and it indulges in far-fetched concepts. So the sun rising, what is there in the poem? Let us read the poem. What is there in the poem? The opening line of the poem says, busy old fool unruly sun. Busy old fool unruly sun. Why dost thou thus through windows and through curtains call on us? Must to thy motions lovers' seasons run? Saucy pedantic wretch go chide late schoolboys and sore prentices. Go tell court huntsman that the king will ride, call country aunt to harvest officers, love all alike, no season knows nor clime, nor hours, days, months, which the rags of time. Love all alike, no season knows, no crime, nor hours, days, months, which are the rakes of time. Thy beams reverend and strong, why shouldest thou think I could? I could. Thy beams reverend and strong, why shouldest thou think I could eclipse and cloud them with a wink? But that I would not lose the sight so long, if her eyes have not blinded thine. Look, and tomorrow late tell me where both the Indias of spice and mine. Be where thou leftest them, or lie here with me. Ask for those kings and whom thou sayest yesterday, and thou shalt hear all here in one bad lay. And thou shalt hear all here in one bad lay. Seize all states. Seize all states and all princes I. Seize all states and all princes I. Nothing else is. Princes do but play us compared to this. All honors mimic, all wealth alchemy. Thou son art half as happy as we, in that the world's contracted thus. Thine age ask ease, and since thy duties be to warm the world, that is done in warming us. Thine age ask ease, and since thy duties be to warm the world, and that is done in warming us. Shine here to us, and thou art everywhere. This bad thy center is, these walls thy spear, these walls thy spear. So, my dear students, see how these two persons, the John Donne and his girlfriend, both of them are lying in a bed and they're thinking. And through the window, the sun rays are passing. And what it's saying? Hey, busy, old fool, ill-mannered son, why are you looking at us through these windows? We don't want that somebody should disturb us. Through windows and through curtains, colonists. You're coming through the curtains, you're coming through the windows. We don't want you to look at us. Let us be busy. Must to thy motions, lover, cease and run. Saucy, pedantic wretch, go chide. Late school boys and sour pen prentices, go tell court huntsman that the king will ride. Hey, Lord son, you just go and tell all of them that the king should go to the courts and go tell court huntsman that the king will ride. Call country aunts to harvest officers. Love all alike. Love is the same. No season knows. No season knows the love. Neither the spring season, nor the winter season, nor the rainy season, or none of the season, whether it's autumn, spring, or rain, no season knows. It means it all remains all the time the same. And nor the climate knows that, nor hours. Even the hours, that means the time does not matter. Day, months, which are the wrecks of the time. Which are the wrecks of the time. Thy beams are reverend. Your beam, your rays are so reverend and strong, thou shouldest thou think I could eclipse and cloud them with a wink. I could eclipse and cloud them with a wink. But that I would not lose her sight so long. If her eyes have not blinded thine, if her eyes have not blinded thine, look, and tomorrow late tell me whether both the Indias, the spice and the mine, be where thou leftest them, or lie here with me. Ask for those kings whom thou sawest yesterday, and thou shalt hear. तुम ये हमारी बातें सुनोगे, all here in one's bad lay, that both of them were lying. She is all states. She, the girlfriend of John Donne, is all states, the all country, all states, and all princes. I, He says that I am the princess of all the countries. And she is all state. That means she is the princess of all states. And I am the prince of all states. Nothing else is. That means मेरा संसार तू है और उसका संसार मैं हूँ. So we are made for each other. That's what, as in Whitmore also he was saying, my face in thine eyes and thine in mine appears. Where can we find to better hemispheres? Princes too, but play us. Compared to this, all honors mimic, all wealth's alchemy. Thou son, are half as happy as we. O Lord Son, you're also half happy as we are half happy. That means Adha hai Chandrama hai Raat Adhi. So both of they are half in the meaning. Thou son are half as happy as we, in that the world's contracted thus. अधूरा रह गया है हमारा, हम आधे आधे अधूरे रह गए हैं. Thine age ask each. तुम बूढ़े हो गए हो सूर्यदेव, and your age is asking you to take rest. Thine age ask ease, and since thy duties be, or whatever the duties you were supposed to do, you have already performed those duties. To warm the world, your duty is to warm the world. Thine age ask ease, you need now rest, Lord Son. आपको आराम की जरूरत है. And since your duties be, and you whatever the duty you are supposed to perform, you already performed. That means now the child seems to be that he is a young boy, and who is saying, who is comparing to the Lord Son or to his parents that, okay, now we have grown up, we don't need you, you are an old man and you have done your duties and we have grown up, let us enjoy now whatever we want to do it, but don't disturb us. So thine age ask ease, and since thy duties be to warm the world, your duties was to warm the world and you had performed the duties. Your duties were to brought us up, nourished us up. You have done the duty and now you forget it. That is done. That means the duty of the parents is done. The duty of the grandparents is done. The duties of mother, father is done. The duties of Lord Son, you have performed your duties, but you now leave it on us. Let us do, let us perform whatever we want to perform. To warm the world, that is done in warming us. You have warmed us. It was your duty. Since you have warmed me, who means I am the prince of all the states, and you have warmed my girlfriend who is the princess of all the states, and that means you have warmed the whole world, because she is my world and I am her world, and you have warmed the whole world. So to warm the world, that is done in warming us. Shine here to us. Now you should shine here to us, on us, and thou art everywhere. You are everywhere. Lord Son is everywhere. And this bad thy center is. This bad is thy center. These walls thy spears. That means this bad is thy center, and these walls are your whole world. It means the poet is trying to say that he has limited everything to that room only, and that room is the poet's everything. Now what we find here in this poem? We find that this is a typical metaphysical love poem. And this poem, in that sense, the emotive element of love is seen to have a rare intellectual basis. And the poem as well maintained the intellectual restraint, emotional depth, and intellectual rationality. Now, we find that lying in bed with means both the lover and the beloved. So lying in bed with his lover, the speaker chides the rising sun, calling it a busy old fool. Just see how the young boy and the young girl, that means a newly married boy and a newly married girl, both of them trying to say that lying in a bed with his lover, the speaker chides the rising sun and calling it a busy old fool. Now who is the busy old fool? Because what is a poem? Poem is something else. Poem is not like a story or thing you're reading. Poem, because a poem has a lot of meaning hidden in it. Only you have to find out, you have to drag out, and you have to correlate with the society. Remember, literature molds the society. Literature molds the character. Sahitya charitra ka nirman karta hai. So don't take the poem otherwise. So the literature develops and inculcates social, economical, moral, and cultural values among you. It infuses the faith, sincerity, love, devotion, affection, gratitude, and so many things. But how you take it, that depends on you. The John Donne is trying to say that lying in bed with his lover, the speaker chides his rising sun and calling a busy old fool. What does it mean? Who is a busy old fool? Is it a Lord's son or somebody else's? So that's a big question. And asking why it must bother them throughout windows and curtains. That means the poet is trying to say that somebody is trying to peep through the window or through the curtains. It means somebody is watching the poet and the poet's girlfriend. But who is he? Indirectly over here, he's saying the Lord Son is there, and he who is compared to be, or who is metaphorically stated that he is a busy old fool. Love is no subject to season, no or to time. He says, and he admonishes the son, the saucy pedantic wretch, to go and bother late schoolboys and sore apprentices to tell the court huntsmen that the king will ride, and to call the country aunts to their harvesting. He says, your duty is not to disturb us, you go and disturb them. Those who are the school-going children, you disturb them. You tell the people, those who are going for the duty, they should go in time. They should perform their duties well in time. They should not be late. But you are disturbing unnecessarily to us instead of going and telling to them. It means indirectly what we find here, that the poet is attacking on the church and the system. The system is not good. Instead of doing that certain other thing, the system is doing wrong with some other cases, whereas the system should look towards the development of the education of the children, or the system should look whether the people are working, doing their duties, performing their duties perfectly or not. But instead, the system is doing something else. That's what he's saying. Again, I'm repeating that he says, and he admonishes the son, the saucy, pedantic wretch, to go and bother late schoolboys and sore apprentices to tell the court huntsmen that the king will ride, and to call the country aunts to their harvesting. Why should the son think that his beams are strong? Why should the son think that his beams are strong? Definitely. Every parents, every father also think, I'm strong, not the children. But now the children have grown up, and they started thinking, yes, we are also not less than that. Why should the son think that his beams are strong? Earlier the parents were strong, but now not now. Because the children have grown up, they can put on the shoes and the sandals of the mother and the father. The girl if the girl can put on the clothes of the mother, and the son can put on the shoes of the father, that means they are equal. And when they are equal, then they feel that they are also not less powerful than the parents. Again, why should the son think that the beams are strong? तो सूर्य देव क्यों सोचते हैं कि मेरी किरणों में बहुत ताकत है, मेरी भुजाओं में बहुत बल है? अभी बच्चों की भुजाओं में भी बहुत बल है. They have to think that. Why should the son think that his beams are strong? The speaker says that he could eclipse them simply by closing his eyes. बोलता है कि मैं अपनी आंखें बंद करूं तो सूर्य ग्रहण आ जाएगा. मेरी आंखें बंद करते ही सूर्य ग्रहण भी आ सकता है. Except that he does not want to lose sight of his beloved. But he does not want to lose the sight of his beloved for even an instant. That means he wants to look at all the time, looking, as he says in the poem Good Morrow, my face in thine eyes and thine in mine appears. Lose sight to his beloved for even an instant. He asks the son, if the son's eyes have not been blinded by the love, he says to tell him by late tomorrow whether the treasure of India, are in the same place they occupied yesterday. Remember, the English people came to the India in 16th century, 1600. And in the 1587, in the book, the Dr. Foster's, Christopher Marlowe also wrote about India. So now these people wanted to lose or take the treasure from India, which was known as the सोने की चिड़िया. भारत को पहले सोने की चिड़िया कहा जाता था, and that's what he's saying in this poem. Just see, It was written in 1633, and English people came to India in 1600 to tell him by late tomorrow whether the treasure of India, means Bharat ka khazana, are in the same place they occupied yesterday. क्या वो वही है जहां उन्होंने पहले रखा हुआ था? Or if they are now in bed with the speaker, he says that if the son asks about the kings he signed on yesterday, he will learn that they all lie in bed with the speaker. 1587 में बुक लिखी गई थी डॉक्टर फॉस्टस 1587 by Christopher Marlowe, and there also the Christopher Marlowe says that I will send my men to India, they will fetch the pearls and the gold and all other jewelry from India. And even the Puck has brought to Christopher Marlowe or to the Dr. Foster's the graves from India at the time when the Duchess wanted in the dead winter in England. He says that if son asked about the kings he signed on yesterday. And in its, the speaker explains his claim by saying, this claim by saying that his beloved is like every country in the world. His beloved is like every country in the world. पूरा संसार है उसके प्रेमी का. That means he says कि पूरा का पूरा संसार तुम हो. My world is my wife, or my world is my life, or my world is my girlfriend. So the speaker explained this claim by saying that his beloved is like every country in the world, and he is like every king. Nothing else is real. Prince simply play at having countries compared to what he has. All honor is mimicry and all wealth is alchemy. The son, the speaker says, is half as happy as he and his lover are. Means half happy, not completely happy. And nobody is absolute happy. Nobody attained the absolute happiness in this world. And those who have attained the absolute, those who have attained the ecstatic kind of thing, that means they are not the man, they have reached to the superhuman or to the supreme, to the sublimity, where very near to the God. The son, the speaker says, is half as happy as he and his lover are. For the fact that the world is contracted into the bed makes the son's job much easier. In its old age, it desires ease. In its old age, it desires ease. अपने बुढ़ापे में आराम चाहिए तुम्हें. जाओ स्वर्गीय देव, आराम करो. And now all it has to do is sign on their bed. Now the Lord's Son should sign on their bed, and if he's signing on their bed, that means he's signing on the whole world. तुमने हमारे बिस्तर को साइन किया है, हमें रोशनी दी है, तुमने सब पूरे संसार को रोशनी दे दी, जाओ आराम करो. This bed thy center is, the speaker tells the son, these balls thy spear. यही है तुम्हारा सेंटर और यही है तुम्हारा spear. Now what we find here, the form, the three regular stanzas of the sun rising are each 10 lines long. एक स्टांजा 10 लाइन का बना हुआ है. The three regular stanzas of the sun rising are at each 10 lines long and follow a line stress pattern. Lines 1, 5 and 6 are metered in iambic tetrameter, and line 2 is in diameter, and lines 3, 4 and 7 through the 10 are in pentameter. The rhyme scheme in each stanza is A B B A C D C D E E. What is that? If you want to comment on the poem, so how will you comment it? One of the Dunn's most charming and successful metaphysical love poem is The Sun Rising. It is built around a few hyperbolic assertions. First, the sun is conscious and has the watchful personality of an old busy body. Second, that love, as the speaker puts it, no season knows, nor climb, nor hours, days, months. न दिन जानते हैं, न घंटे जानते हैं, न महीने जानते हैं, which are the rags of time. Third, the speaker's love affair is so important to the universe that the kings and the princes simply copy it. Simply copy it. That the world is literally contained within their bedroom. Of course, each of these assertions simply describes figurative state of feeling. Figurative state of feeling to the wakeful lover. The rising sun does seem like an intruder, irrelevant to the operations of the love. to the man in love, the bedroom can seem to enclose all the matters in the world. The inspiration of this poem is to pretend that each of these subjective states of feeling is an object truth.